gonna be upset in. Yeah, Hollywood painting outrage over something being a bad taste. What a fucking joke. Hollywood fucking thrives on bad taste, and it's always been that way. This is not a new phenomenon. And speaking of which, Shane Gillis getting fired from Saturday Night Live over a fucking joke. Last time I checked, a comedian telling a joke isn't a fireable offense. Isn't he just doing what you hired him to do? And what was even more ridiculous about it was he was fired over a joke he told 5 years prior on a podcast. Almost as if they were looking for an excuse to fire somebody. It wasn't even a joke he was pitching for the show. It was a joke he told on a podcast 5 years prior. As if the comedians and comedy writers who got hired for the show has never had a bad set. Oh, you remember that bad set you had back in 1985? Like they were looking for an excuse to fire somebody. And we're talking about Saturday Night Live with the bad boys of network TV. They used to do 8 balls over hookers in the green room. So how was a comedian simply telling a joke a fireable offense? Isn't he just doing what you hired him to do? Yeah, I fail to see what the fireable offense is. The correct response, and I'm pretty sure in the writer's room, they pitch jokes all the time. They don't make errors simply because they're not good enough. So the correct response would be, do not one of your better jokes, go back to the drawing board and write a better joke. Since when is a comedian simply telling a joke a fireable offense? Isn't he just doing what you hired him to do? If you hire somebody to regrout your bathroom when they regrout your bathroom, and was that yeah, I failed to see what's the fireable offense? You hire somebody to repave your driveway and they repave your driveway. Yeah, I failed to see what the fireable offense is. You hire somebody to trim your hedges and they trim your hedges. Yeah, I fail to see what the fireable offense is. A comedian telling a joke isn't a fireable offense. Isn't he just doing what you hired him to do? And what was even more ridiculous about him, it wasn't even a joke he was pitching on the show. It was a joke he told 5 years prior to being hired or to be on the show. Almost like they were looking for an excuse to fire somebody. What's next? You're gonna go all the way back to 3rd grade. Remember that knock-knock joke you told in 3rd grade? Like they were just looking for an excuse to fire somebody. A comedian telling a joke, irregardless whether or not you like the joke. Yeah, how the fuck is that a viable offense? Isn't he just doing what you hired him to do? And we're talking about Saturday Night Live, the bad boys in network TV. They used to do 8 balls off of hookers in the green room. So how the hell is somebody simply telling a joke a viable offense? It's just like when Gilbert Gottfried lost his Affleck commercial deal over some expensive tweets, and his nightclub act has always been controversial. Well, they weren't familiar with his nightclub act when they hired him to do the commercial. They were only familiar with his voice acting work for Disney. You get my point? One of his more famous jokes was, never go up to Jackie Onassis and ask her, where were you when Kennedy got shot? Yeah, that's always been the tone of his nightclub act. He's always been controversial. or they weren't familiar with his nightclub act when they hired him to do the commercial. They were only familiar with his Disney work, or Disney voice acting work. So I know the comedian telling a joke of I was. Isn't he just doing what you hired him to do?